What TV show went on too long and should have ended sooner? SpongeBob WTF for the new episodes, they're like fever dreams. That 70s show. Just shows in general that try to keep going without their lead. It's not always their fault, but it just is never really the same show. Soon as Donna goes blonde, it's time to watch another show. The Walking Dead. I feel that it just lingered too long on the same story elements before continuing. I think it could have concluded in half the time and been a much more consistently good series. They may have run into some Game of Thrones type issues, but they really should have stuck closer to the comics and more so not wasted so much time on some of those storylines. An entire season just to introduce Negan? There's building up suspense, and there's just wasting time. It's much like The Hobbit. Good source material, but sort of stretched. Like butter scraped over too much bread. Greater than it's much like The Hobbit. Good source material, but sort of stretched. Like butter scraped over too much bread. I just want to take a moment to appreciate how smoothly you just referenced Bilbo's quote from Fellowship of the Ring to explain both TWD and The Hobbit. +1 internet to you. Exactly. After fourth or so season. After the governor storyline ended, it is unsatisfyingly still the same. They find a refuge. Rick somehow fails to accommodate. Some tougher group comes by. Few people get dramatically killed. Rick's group splits, is driven out of the refuge. The refuge gets destroyed, taken over. They find another refuge. It's just boring. Honestly, I found myself rooting for Negan once I got over him killing Glenn. How I Met Your Mother dragged on for ages only to have ended like that. Yes, and they were so close to having a perfect ending with a mother, which I thought made it worth it. But they threw that storyline in the trash with, well, you know what happened. The fact that they managed to fuck up the entire ending in a couple of minutes is both impressive and infuriating. Grey's Anatomy. It's still going. Should have ended at like season 12. Should have ended before they killed McDreamy for sure. The whole show was ridiculous after that. Once Upon a Time. As much as I loved the first couple of seasons, it went on too long. Season 7 shouldn't have even been reached, let alone made. They just reset as they ran out of ideas. I do like the ending, but it wasn't worth the waiting. Dexter for sure should have ended on season 4. I read this post. I read the comments accompanying this post. Straight up confused. I now realize all yous guys are talking about the good guy serial killer cop show. I was thinking of Dexter's Laboratory. The biggest problem was they blew their storyline load in season 2. Rather than Dokes being the only guy in the entire station to get the idea Dexter might be a bad guy, and then Dexter killing him and getting away with it all. The series should have ended that way, with more and more evidence becoming available that swayed the department's opinion. After that, it felt like he worked with the dumbest detectives in America. 2.5 Men. They should have just cancelled it after Charlie Sheen was fired. The Office. They should have fit everything after Michael left into maybe a mini-season. Robert California was fantastic, but really the show ended with butchering Andy, flanderizing Aaron, and giving us that weirdly uncomfortable Jim, Pam storyline. What they did to Andy's character was awful. It was seriously one of my least favorite things they did. X-Files should have ended when Duchovny left. Agreed. I did like the role reversal of Scully having to entertain the possibility of the paranormal and Doggett being totally out of the loop though, as opposed to the later Mulder, Scully seasons where Scully would be skeptical, and as a viewer, you're constantly like, you two discovered a chimera race inside a spaceship under Antarctica in the movie that took place before this season though. How are you still not taking Mulder's theories seriously? They shouldn't have rebooted Arrested Development. Yeah, season 4 was an interesting concept and had a few great moments, but it was so obviously a product of not being able to get more than a couple of the actors in the same room at once. Season 5 was just a mess. dragged a few basic ideas out over the course of 2 years, and pretty much turned everyone into the worst version of themselves. That said, it didn't deserve to end at season 3 and definitely had more to give. If they'd been able to do one more season in the original run to wrap things up, it could have been the perfect sitcom. But the Netflix revival just never seemed to know where it was going, and never really managed to hit the same high notes again. Dexter. They could have ended it after Deb found Dexter's slides, or by having Deb shoot him instead of LaGuerta. Jeff Lindsay said that his imagined ending would have been Dexter strapped to a gurney in Florida's execution chamber waiting for the lethal injection. They could have easily jumped to that after Deb found the slides. What they should have done is continue the storyline from after Rita's murder by the Trinity killed. Have the detectives piece together why he went after someone close to Dexter. That should have been the main plot for season 5, leading to the finale of discovering what he's done. Castle. Fabulous series that just went to hell the last 2 seasons. The Simpsons. I am 40+ years old. I was in grade school when The Simpsons premiered. Bart Simpson's voice actor just had her first baby when the show was starting. She's a grandma now. Same here. I was 14 when The Simpsons came out. Now, my 16-year-old son is watching The Simpsons. I mean literally right now. He's watching it on Disney Plus while doing schoolwork. The Fairly Odd Parents. They kept adding characters to get more merchandise. I didn't hate Poof, but honestly it should have ended before they came along. Definitely before the weird dog and I never watched these episodes. They added like a weird neighbor that shares Cosmo and Wanda or something? I don't know. It was a good show and they ruined it for money. Shocking, isn't it? Poof wasn't too bad of an addition, but Sparky was where they crossed the line. I stopped watching after Poof came along. I saw half an episode with the neighbor girl and I can't even. Butch Hartman is kind of an ass too, tbh. Scrubs. I don't even count that last season when discussing Scrubs. Stupid interns could never replace main cast edit. I guess you people forgot about season 9. Glee. I loved that show with my whole heart, but season 6 was terrible. It was really all downhill after season 3. Pretty Little Liars. In the end, all the characters were crazy because of the extended storyline lol, and half the time I couldn't remember all their actions from the past. But hey, they planned for only 1 season and with TGE success had to continue even after outing the big bad. It kinda explains the confusion. 13 Reasons Why? There were 13 reasons, and that was why we didn't need any more. So, 13 seasons why? Please no. Death Note. Screw everything that came after the last showdown between Yagami and L. I never understood the point of killing L. I am still bitter about it 11 years later. The point of killing L was that Yagami ultimately won. The good guys don't always have to win. Supernatural Season 6, before the whole Leviathan storyline, would have been perfect with just 5 seasons honestly. YKA, there was supposed to be only 5 seasons. Which is why Misha Collins, Castiel, does that weird voice for his role. He was only supposed to be a guest star. I would have capped House after about the 5th or 6th season. Both seasons and their finales have good enough points to jump off from Monsieur 5th season, with him finally accepting he's not okay and going to get help. And 6th season with him realizing he's not alone after all, and he doesn't need drugs in his life. You mean the episode where he was rapping with Lin-Manuel Miranda in a mental institution isn't television gold? Excuse me? I really must watch more of this show. Nah, I love how House ended, man. Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. That shit gets to me every time. That final season. Weeds. It was so good and then so bad. It started going downhill once they left Agrestic Majestic after season 3. Nancy just couldn't keep all those dicks out of her and the whole thing went off the rails. I like the Mexican governor story arc. Riverdale Season 4 is a mess. It sounds like a 7-year-old just learned how to lucid dream and wrote it all down. I mean, WTF were the writers thinking? Riverdale was a mess after Season 2 for me. Now I watch for the car crash. It has become background stuff only. While I'm painting the house. Half watching. Definitely listening. Starting Season 2 it became crazy. I stopped at Birdie doing a fucking strip dance in front of her mom and boyfriend. Like she is supposed to be a minor, for God's sakes. And her mom didn't even get her down. It just was too much after all the other fucked scenes. From what I hear about other seasons, I'm glad I stopped as well. Unpopular opinion, but Stranger Things. I thought Stranger Things was going to be an anthology of sorts. Like Season 1 would be a standalone story about Hawkins and Eleven and all that. Then Season 2 would be a completely different story about something weird that happened somewhere else. I think that would have been way better. It was a great short story. Second season sucked and I haven't even watched the third season. They're killing the mystery by dragging it out too long. Anthology would have been ideal. But it was too big of a hit and the child actors were too popular for them to do that. Honestly, Netflix was rarely getting sensations like that at the time. They kind of had an obligation to run with it. But yes, I think Season 1 in itself is the best the series has ever been and will be, and was a perfect miniseries if left alone. I don't think it should have ended, but I certainly don't like the direction they took it. Go back to Season 1 and it's a really dark, serious show with an interesting story. Season 3 is just a nostalgia fest full of jokey moments with a half-arsed story. I enjoyed Season 3 but not for the reasons I loved Season 1. Dating myself. But Happy Days, from which the expression, jumped the shark comes. It means something like got stupid and dragged on too long. Edit. Till precisely what jumped the shark means. And it's not quite what I thought it was. Still, the point stands that Happy Days spawned a phrase used to describe TV shows that go from good to bad. Yeah, but I was about 5 when Fonzie jumped the shark and I thought that was about the coolest thing I'd ever seen. I also didn't understand why it was funny that Ralph Malph was taking an ironing board to California so he could go surfing. Seemed perfectly reasonable to young me. The original NCIS. I love the show but all the favorites are leaving. It's time to cut the show. Ziva, Tony and then Abby. I like the new characters. Except for Bishop. But now it's too much. I was gonna comment that too. It was our family routine to go watch the new episode every Friday night. But when Ziva left, it wasn't the same for me. Even if she herself replaced Kate, whom I love. It's just that the new cast is not as good. Family Guy. Ever since the episode in which Brian died, I can't help but feel like they're following a more blatant formula for their episodes and stories. To me, it's not really that it's gotten formulaic so much as its humor has regressed too much to pure shock and dark humor. Every is just a shadow of their former self. A shadow of evil and hate that exists only to harm others. Peter is a sociopathic toddler in a man's body. Brian is a liberal douche who forces his views on other people and has an arrogant opinion of himself. Quagmire went from a horn dog who gets laid a lot to a straight-up rapist who literally has a house built around raping unwilling women. Joe went from an intense, athletic guy whose handicap does nothing to limit him as a person to a miserable man who often considers suicide because he literally that little of a man now. Greater than Brian is the liberal douche who forces his views on other people and has an arrogant opinion of himself, especially for being an obnoxious atheist after having literally met Jesus. I'm an atheist, agnostic. But Brian still gets on my nerves. Supernatural. It should have ended with Yellow Eyes. Should have ended with Season 5. Sam taking Lucifer to hell was the perfect conclusion. This was the first show that came to mind for me. 2. The fact that it's still going is mind-blowing to me. Apparently, it's finally ending after this season. Suits. The first season was interesting. New case every episode. But after that it started to feel like a boring soap opera. The View. Please kill it! Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. You mean you don't like middle-aged women yelling about their political opinions? I think upper-class celebrity with a layman's understanding of politics is a much more relevant selection criteria on why the show sucks. Like, there are plenty of middle-aged women with coherent and structured politics. But we, or rather the people that make these decisions, seem to think that celebrity and money is what gives people a worthwhile opinion. And not like, actually spending time learning enough to have a worthwhile opinion. Thank you so much for watching and have a good day.